Welcome to today's episode of InvestGhana Podcast. My name is Veni Kwanzaa, and today we'll be looking at the mining sector in Ghana, how it keeps being a driving force behind Ghana's economy. Today I'm joined by two amazing industry experts. First, we have Mr. Richard Ellimah. He's a natural resource governance and sustainable development expert. He's also the chairperson of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. You're welcome, Mr.
Thank you.
Ellimah. Also, we have Kwabena Barning. He is the Chief Technical Officer of and the Head of Operations at the Minerals Income Investment Fund. You're welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Today, we are at Labadi Beach Hotel, and they are sponsoring today's episode of Invest Ghana, which is run by the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. We're going to go deep into our conversation today, and I hope we are ready because we are up for a very exciting episode today. I'm going to start with you, Kwabena. I need your opinion on how you'd assess Ghana's current position as a mining destination, first of all in West Africa and then globally.
Right. Thank you, Veni. I believe Ghana is still a tier 1 mining jurisdiction. And for good reason, because Ghana is still the number 1 producer of gold on the continent. We have 4 of the biggest gold mining companies operating mines in Ghana. It speaks to the attractiveness of the country. Right. The fact that you have 4 of the top mines operating in Ghana. And then also if you look at exploration spend over the last several years, I mean, it keeps going up. Clearly, there has been challenges, but these are not challenges that have dimmed our position in terms of our ranking, in terms of the attractiveness of the country. And I always say that mining is one geology. I mean, the fact that you need to have the resources or in country, you need to have occurrence of the resources in country to attract foreign direct investors to come in and want to explore. But it's also to do with the policies that have been put together by governments to be able to attract investors to come in and want to do the things that they do best. So I believe that Ghana is well positioned to lead the charge in that respect. And then if you look at what we do, I mean, if you compare us to other mining enclaves, we are always a pace setter. Other countries have come in to learn from us and follow in our footsteps.
Yes.
Just a couple of days ago, we had a delegation from the Zambia that had come in to basically understudy what we do here in Ghana. So, I mean, all this put together presents Ghana in a very positive light. And going forward, I think it can only get better as we go forward.
Right. Any thoughts, Richard?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Kwabena. Basically, historically, we have been a solid mining country. I mean, historically, if you take West Africa, we are one of the most resilient mining economies. And you just have to check the figures. Even in periods when we've had economic turmoil across the sub-region, Ghana's mining industry has stood firm. And that tells you how well we have done. So in West Africa, I can't think of any other country that can be Ghana in terms of mining resilience. On the African continent, I think we are ranked number 2, only behind Botswana or so. I saw one of the ratings, and that is a very good sign. Most people think of South Africa, but South Africa has lost its luster. They've lost the shine that used to make it number 1 on the African continent. Unfortunately, they lost it to Ghana. And I'm sure they might not want to hear this, but that is what is happening. So on the whole, we are doing very well. If you take globally, gold mining, we are ranked within the first 10 top gold producing countries in the world. And these figures are a positive sign to investors all over the world. Usually they will look at the figures, they will look at what is it about Ghana that is making it so attractive. Kwabena mentioned the top 4 biggest mining companies operating in Ghana. I mean, the question is, why are they still here? And the reason why they are still here is what will make other investors want to come to Ghana.
That's true. Kwabena, earlier you made a point about the policies. I recently found out that Nigeria has introduced a more streamlined registration for artisanal mining, which Ghana has been doing for the longest time. We've had it in the Minerals and Mining Act for small-scale miners, which we have reserved for Ghanaians. What other policies do you think Ghana has that is attractive to investors? What other policies do we currently have? Has the government rolled out that is appealing, that should be appealing to investors?
I think first and foremost is also the kind of stability that we present as a country. We have our challenges, but we are together. There's cohesion, there's social cohesion, and that sort of thing promotes promotes the investment climate in a positive way. I mean, you talked about small scale mining in Ghana, and over the last 12 months or so, you've seen how much the country is getting out of the artisanal and small scale mining subsector. Clearly, there are opportunities out there for everyone. And then we have enough laws in our statute books to shape and transform the sector. I think what you see around you is just illegality. Illegal mining is an illegality, and nobody condones illegality. But if you look at what government is trying to do today, they've put in place measures to sanitize the sector so that we can all benefit from the transformational drive that subsector can bring to our economy. So I would say we're doing quite a lot, and we have all hands on deck to make sure that we drive things in a very positive manner for the benefit of the citizens of Ghana. Yeah.
I agree with you. Richard, I want us to take a look at the value chain of the mining sector in Ghana. Which key minerals do you think currently present the strongest growth and investment opportunities in Ghana?
Well, from the top of my head, I mean, and obviously it is gold. Gold because we've had a very long history of mining in the gold sector. And investors always look at the issue of risk. So considering that we've mined gold for over 150 years, industrial gold mining, I mean, we've done it. Even in Obuasi, we started mining in 1897. Industrial mining started in 1897. So we've had quite an experience with gold mining. So any investor interested in the mining sector will know that the gold mining sector is more or less de-risked. So it's easier to put in money in that sector. So gold is there. And secondly, because of the current discussions on the energy transition, climate change, and so on, now critical minerals are also becoming more popular. They are now in vogue. And investors are now shifting attention from the fossil fuels to these renewable energies. And critical minerals play a very fundamental role in that. So our lithium find has also attracted some interest.
I was going to go into lithium because lithium is a very...
Yes. It has attracted some interest. But unfortunately, we've not really done enough exploration to know the quantum of lithium that we have. It is still not known. But if we are comparing ourselves to other African countries, even in West Africa, I think Nigeria's own find is quite significant as compared to that of Ghana. But in any case, it is still a very attractive mineral that is engaging the attention of investors across the world. And then there are also development minerals, which are hardly mentioned in our discourse. There are development minerals, there are critical minerals, and there are those solid minerals and so on. I mean, they are all there. Development minerals like clay, something like clay. Clay is a mineral, but we hardly talk about it. I mean, if you go to the rural areas, a lot of people survive on clay. And imagine if we developed the clay industry and develop it along the value chain. Can you imagine the employment we generate? Can you imagine the rural industrialization we will generate and so on? So all these are very positive signs. We have a lot of minerals, just that we are still unable to package them very well and sell to investors for them to come and exploit.
And just a point or two on that. I mean, if you look at inflows that, come to government, gold represents, or gold mining represents about 97% of that. So I would say gold is still king, in the sense that um, most of the inflows and the foreign exchange earnings that we generate come from that subsector. Of course, like my colleague said, you have other minerals and metals like manganese, bauxite, and the rest of it. Even sea salt, is a mineral, and we have an abundance of it. Ghana is a coastal country, so we have an abundance of it. And quite recently, with the development of lithium. So Ghana is a very, I would say, multi-metallic country, in the sense that there's so much minerals in Ghana. But currently, the biggest contribution in terms of aggregate revenue that comes from the sector comes clearly from the gold mining operations.
I agree. But should we not be looking at diversifying, as Richard said, because you focus so much on gold, and I know it's driven by market, but then gold prices fall, then what happens? And I know we've given ourselves some protection with the new royalties regulation, but then I think we should also, as a country, look more to diversifying, taking a bit more interest in the other minerals like Richard suggested.
I think, I mean, you're absolutely right. And there's a lot going on in terms of exploration, because you have to explore for the mineral or the metal to be able to mine it. And so if you look at what companies are doing around the country, there's graphite being explored in the northern part of Ghana. There's lithium in the central part of Ghana. There's manganese in the western part of Ghana. There's also bauxite in the western north.
And iron ore.
And iron ore in the eastern part of Ghana. And he talked about clay minerals. So there's clearly a lot going on in that regard. But if you look at how long it takes from exploration to making a finding, it's usually a long time horizon. So nothing is stopping anybody from exploring. It's an ongoing exercise. And if you look at our exploration spend, last year was about 135 million US dollars. These are figures that were shared by the Chamber of Mines. It clearly shows that there's a lot more going into that space. The previous year was about 106, and it's all not going into just gold exploration. It's all over, it cuts across all the mineral types in Ghana. Yes.
Yeah, I to add to that, I think we need to, I mean, when I talk about we as a state, we need to commit to doing more exploration and doing more doing more geological investigations to know which minerals we have, where they are, and then that is where the GFPC then comes in. We can package them for investors. It is sad that sometimes you travel and then some foreigners meet you and they tell you that, oh, I hear Ghana has this mineral and you've never heard it before. So government must spend more. As it is, we've left exploration to the private companies, and I don't think that helps. Government should dedicate more funding to doing more geological investigations, getting to know which minerals are located where, and then based on that, we can then go to the investor community and then sell it to them.
Great. I just want us to go away a bit from the extraction and look at value addition, because so far we've been looking at what we export. How can we as a country increase value addition to the minerals that are extracted in the country?
I mean, when you talk value addition, you're talking basically beneficiation, downstream processing. which is manufacturing, but because it's still connected to mining, mining plays a role in that. If you look at what Gold Board is doing, currently, they want to promote the setup of refineries to refine the gold that we produce in country. As you may know, all the gold that is produced is exported outside of the country and refined and then sold back to us. So Gold Board is doing a wonderful thing by promoting that activity in country, and it's a form of value addition. If you look at what manganese in Nsuta, Western region, are engaged in, they are busy building an electrolytic manganese plant. And this is clearly an input that you need for battery manufacturing. So clearly there's a lot going on in that space. And then if you talk about the lithium, the spodumene concentrate that is going to be produced, there's talk of us processing it in country. So there are plans underway. I think a year or so ago, we're talking to a company based out of the US that is interested in coming in to set up a lithium processing, factory or refinery once lithium starts getting produced in Ghana. So there's a lot government is doing in that regard. I think the essence of this conversation is to make Ghanaians aware of what government is doing, so that we can continue to support government's efforts in those areas.
Richard, I need a non-government point of view on this question.
Yes, it's interesting because this is something that we've been championing for years. Probably as a backgrounder for the benefit of our viewers, I was born in Obuasi. I grew up there. I schooled there. My family is still there, and basically that's where I live. I come to Accra for work and then go back. So I have lived with gold mining for over 100 years. My grandfather used to be a goldsmith way back in the 1940s, in the 1950s. Now, the interesting thing is that currently there's no single goldsmith in Obuasi. Why? That feeds into the conversation that we are having. So something is being done. We are promoting the setting up of refineries. But beyond that, the question is, and then what? We refine the gold, and then? For me, the biggest benefit the state can get is when we get to the latter end of the chain, when you add value to the refined product. If we can refine the gold and feed the jewelry industry in Ghana and build a very strong, resilient jewelry industry in Ghana where other African countries can even come and then trade like we used to do in the 80s, I'm sure we'll be the best for it. So yes, let's set up the refineries. But then in connection with that, let's also add the value addition to the refined products. Let's refine the gold, and then let's get our industry. Gold Board has a jewelry.
Yes, I was about to mention.
Yes.
I was going to give credit to
They're doing very well.
Gold Board.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Their products are so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know some American friends who came and bought some jewelry, and they love it. They love it. How are we marketing this? And how many of these Gold Board jewelries can we get? Because it's just one company doing it. Can we get additional companies in that sector? And the good news is that the large-scale mines have agreed to sell 30% of their gold to Gold Board.
Yeah.
That is a lot of, a very positive sign. Yeah. So they sell it to Gold Board, we refine it, and then let's take the next step of adding value to it. Create something out of our gold. And then that is where we make all the money.
I mean, it's ongoing. I mean, yeah. I'm happy you mentioned, Gold Board, the jewelry shopping within Gold Board, and the other jewelry entities as well.
Yeah.
I believe, even talk of these minted coins is also a form of adding value, and you have Ghanaians that now own minted coins, gold minted coins. The Bank of Ghana is a form of investment, is a store of wealth. It's a cushion against inflation. But the point is, to be able to mint gold coin, you need to be able to refine it. So once the refinery is in country and the process takes place in country, then the next stage would be feeding that product to the jewelers to be able to then use that in a finished product. Yes.
I'm happy that we've had a great conversation about the positives, but then I also want us to look at some of the problems that the sector is currently facing and how can that be solved, not to discourage investment, but rather to attract the investors to know that even though these problems exist, so and so is being done, ABC is being done to resolve it, to make sure that we all make a good headway with the mining sector. Kwabena.
I've traveled and worked across many countries in Africa, and I always say this, that there's not a single country that I've come across that is against mining. There's not a single host community that I've come across that is against mining. In fact, the very reason why we are sitting here comfortably is because of mining. So the importance of mining is not in doubt.
Yes.
And the question is, are there challenges? Yes, there are clearly challenges. And that's why we strive to the point where, governments put in place policies and systems and infrastructure to help address these challenges. If you look at it critically, we don't have mines in the cities. There's not a single country, right from Mauritania to South Africa, that has mines in the cities. So clearly, for mines to thrive and to grow, governments will have to provide the infrastructure that is needed. Call it energy, water sources, road infrastructure. And if you look at Ghana, we are not doing badly. Look at energy distribution. It goes to almost about 80% of the country is covered. So clearly there's a lot being done. If you look at the large-scale mining companies specifically, there's all kinds of monitoring mechanisms in place to ensure that mining is done in a very responsible manner.
Yes.
I don't think it's in the interest of any company to come in and want to destroy the environment. You visit some of these mining towns and you look at the level of reclamation that has been done, and you even wonder that, is this really in Ghana? Is this in Africa? So there's quite a lot being done. But like I said, it's clearly not a finished product. It's work in progress, and there's many more that needs to be done in that regard. The illegal activities,
I thought you would
that
go
one,
there.
I don't want us to even dwell on it, because that's an illegality.
Yes.
No government will condone illegality.
Exactly.
So, and again, there's a lot, as you know, being done in that regard to make sure that subsector is sanitized so that we can realize the full potential of that sector. So, yes, there are problems, clearly. But like I said, it's work in progress. And we're working towards achieving that sort of target, yes.
Richard.
The way Kwabena framed the responses, it makes it difficult for me to even come in. Yes. But let me still, respond from my perspective. The industry is doing very well. We all know the benefits to the economy. The mining industry is still the single largest contributor to domestic revenue. That is a fact. And if we all complain about some of the externalities and the negative practices in the industry, but then, like Kwabena said, the reality is that mining has come to stay. So how do we then make sure mining is done responsibly in order not to create challenges for the communities in which they operate and for the state? That, I think, is where the challenges which we need to address. First of all, I must place on record that we have come a very, very long way. I saw how mining operated in the late 80s to the 90s and how things are now. Environmental regulation has gone up so much. The EPA is doing so well to regulate the industry. So mining companies in Ghana now, especially large-scale mines, they are far more responsible now than they were some years ago. So that is a positive signal that we need to put out there. In terms of community relations, we used to have a lot of agitations in the communities, and we still do, but the intensity has gone down. I have seen mining companies deliberately engaging more with their host communities. They are engaging more with the host communities, not just to tick the box, but because now they feel the communities are partners. And without the communities, they cannot operate. That is also one very positive signal that we need to look out there for. And then beyond that, at the national level, I think one of the challenges that we need to also address has to do with policy certainty in the mining sector, policy certainty. Over the past few years, there have been too many drastic changes in our mining sector policies. We've reviewed the Minerals and Mining Act a number of times. We have come up with several legislations and papers and all that. That in itself is not bad. Every state on earth wants to derive maximum benefit from its industry. But what becomes a bit worrying is where there is no engagement with the company, with the industry, and they are mostly taken by surprise. A few have happened over the past few years, so I don't want to repeat it. But these things are complaints that come from the industry, and it is something that we need to watch out for. Yes, government can decide. I mean, the resources belong to the people of Ghana, so government can decide whichever way it wants, direction it wants the policy to go. But then I don't think it will hurt if government decides to do an extensive engagement with industry, give ourselves some time period within which they have to comply, and then they move on.
Not to interrupt you, but I would speak for government here. I wouldn't let Kwabena do that because from a legal point of view, I know that even before laws are passed, right, there's a process and there are discussions with stakeholders.
Yes.
Maybe the issue may be the publicity behind the stakeholder engagements, but I do not think we can fault government when it comes to involving the stakeholders in decision making. Because before a bill becomes a law, there are lots of town hall meetings that are held, stakeholder engagements. Even sometimes the bill is sent to institutions to get their input. So I do see maybe the problem being the publicity of that undertaking being done rather than the involving stakeholders, because so there's so much the government can do.
I think you are talking too much for government.
Okay, so don't worry. I'll maybe let the government.
You've abdicated your role. And you've moved on to Kwabena side.
No, not at all. I'm just giving some insight on.
Now I'm being suffocated.
Not at all. Richard, please make your point.
So I am not saying no engagement went on.
Right.
Some engagements went on. But the point I'm making is that I am becoming a mouthpiece for industry from what they tell us in our engagement with them. Right. They complain that there's no extensive engagement. And I have also seen ministers issuing directives. I don't know. I mean, you are telling me, I don't know whether the minister engaged them before coming out to say what they say or anything like that. I'm not too sure. But the industry complained that the minister gives a directive. And you know how the markets behave. Once it goes out of your mouth, the internet picks it, and then it's all over the BBC reports it, and it sends a signal to Wall Street and other, powerhouses in London and so on. So the point I'm making is that let's make an effort to engage more extensively. It's not just about ticking the box. It's about doing genuine engagement. something happens, all right, yes. The minister engages the Chamber of Mines, yes. But what I'm saying is that let's do much, much more than we are doing now in order to calm the markets and ensure that our industry remains as stable as it can be.
Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is that it's also in the interest of government to continue to put in place policies that will attract investors into the subsector. And here we're not talking just foreign investors, we're talking Ghanaians as also investors. So I don't think it's in anybody's interest for government to want to tip the balance one way that would prevent or that would not encourage investment into the sector. So it's all about fiscal regime balance, how you strike a balance, because if you give too much to investors, then the net benefit coming to the people gets reduced, and vice versa. So I think governments are conscious of that fact. It's not lost on anyone. And again, this is a policy issue. I don't want to speak for policy formulators, but we see what goes on in Ghana. We see what pertains in other jurisdictions. And again, it's well within the rights of government to change laws and to amend regulations. And it's enshrined in the Constitution, as you know, and also in the minerals and mining law. So I don't think government would want to cripple the industry that contributes so much to the economy. And so it's just a matter of, like you said, creating that nice balance so that the conversation can keep on going on.
I believe Richard's fears have been assuaged
Oh,
now.
let me give you a live example. You know what happened to Obuasi between 2012 and 2019? Anglo Gold Ashanti went on care maintenance. Anglo Gold is the only mining company in Obuasi, and they've mined that, mine for 100 years plus. Then 2012, they said they were going on care maintenance for, they said 2 years or so. But it ended up dragging on till 2019. The reason is, within that period, they were engaging government. I cannot pass judgment on what government did. I mean, I'm not in a position to do so. But some way, somehow, the company's return delayed. And within that period, the Obuasi town virtually died. I mean, I saw for the first time what a ghost town really meant. I mean, because Anglo Gold is a very big octopus whose tentacles reach everywhere. Now it is dead. It affected everybody. So I am citing this example to indicate that yes, government has the right under Constitution to pass policies and so on. But inherent within that right is also a responsibility to the Ghanaian people to take the right decisions that will make sure our livelihoods are sustained. So far, government is doing well. We all support that.
We have to give them the credit.
We all support that we retain maximum benefit from our mining industry. I am all for it. I'm a big champion of that. But then, in doing so, let us also let's do it in a very fair, transparent, participatory manner. And then, I mean, all these speculations will then die off.
Right. So, speaking about mining, I want us to look at the role that technology plays in mining. How do you think technology is impactful in unlocking Ghana's potential to becoming a powerhouse in the region and then globally?
I mean, if you look at what goes on, if you've had the opportunity to visit any mine in Ghana, you realize that the mines operate at the very cutting edge of technology. I mean, in today's mining, not like years ago or decades ago, it's all driven by technology. It's all driven by science. There's a science behind everything that is done. I mean, if you take, like geology, Geology back in the day would be like educated guesswork. Today is not like that. You go to Zambia and you look at what they are doing in terms of using AI to even identify where the minerals are, to be able to go in and explore them. It shortens the amount of time and the amount of money you will need to find or make a finding or identify a deposit. So, and it cuts across the entire, value chain, right? From, processing, exploration to processing, to even fleet management, where we're talking about the trucks, the earth-moving mine equipment. So there's quite a lot being done already. And the question is, can a lot more be done? Of course, yes. I mean, like in every other, setting, I mean, we always strive for perfection. So it's an ongoing thing. It's a continuous improvement. So yes, I would say technology plays a key role, and there's a lot more being done by the respective mining companies in that regard. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. If you look at the current mines, large scale mines we have in Ghana, I mean, like Kwabena said, almost all of them have deployed technology, and it has immensely benefited them. Production levels have gone up. Injuries have drastically gone down. Lost man hours have almost been eliminated. And in terms of environmental management, I think I earlier on said that the companies are doing very well. One of the reasons they are doing very well is the deployment of technology and innovation. They are using very innovative ideas and technologies to transform the environment. Now, almost all the mines are into what they call green mining. Green mining. I mean, naturally, mining is a very destructive activity, naturally. But then, how do we do mining sustainably? How do we mine and still keep the environment in as pristine and make it as pristine as possible, for other people to also come and benefit. And that is what they are doing now. And they deploy technology in that regard. So you can't take away technology from our mining space. And I'm glad to note that across Africa, Ghana is one of the countries that uses technology immensely in our mining. I mean, I've been to other countries. If you check Ghana particularly, we are doing very well, and I think we need to commend ourselves, while also saying that there's still more room for improvement. We can do more. If you look at the turnaround time for technology, if you look at how technology keeps changing, and the new innovations that come up all the time, it means the mining companies have to keep up, and then still do more, and mine in order to preserve the environment. It sounds ironic, but it's still very possible. Yes, it can be done. It can be done. I've seen in Uganda where miners, development mineral miners, they've mined and then restored the environment. And when you go there, you will not even think the mining used to take place. So it can still be done. It can still be done. It's all about technology, identifying even the plants to use for the reclamation and so on. All these are things that technology teaches us, and the mining companies have deployed all these, and it's helping.
Right. I know you've given some examples already, but I want us to look at other jurisdictions. What are other jurisdictions doing to mine sustainably, and how can Ghana take a peek and learn from them? What are the things that other jurisdictions are doing that we can learn from? I'll start with Richard.
Oh, okay, sure. Let me go to where I have been to. I've been to Australia. Australia is a standout when it comes to sustainable mining, and as you know, they mine all kinds of minerals, and they have huge mining, concessions where they are doing their mining, but then they have infused sustainable practices. One, they promote afforestation. So on every mine site you go to in Australia, you see greenery. Yes, they dig the earth, but they make sure they restore it. Even if not immediately, they plant trees around just to be sure that in some years to come, we'll still have the natural environment. They cut down on the use of poisonous substances, mercury and so on. Now it's been outlawed. Uh-huh. And so the release of some of these substances into the atmosphere is highly controlled. Even for the ones that are permitted, it is highly controlled. So you hardly hear cases of water pollution like we have in Ghana here, where occasionally, even with the large-scale mines, occasionally they report that yes, there have been some accidental spillage and so on. In Australia, you hardly hear about that because of the measures that they have put in place to sustain these things. And then you cannot talk about sustainable mining without also talking about relationship between the company and the communities. And for that example, I am reluctant to use Australia as a case study because of their peculiar example. In Australia, almost all the mines are way, way, way out of town. So they are not close to the communities and they don't encounter the problems that we have. If you come to Obuasi, the mine is within the town, within the Obuasi town. So clashes are inevitable. So sustainable practices also mean that the mines have to take steps to address concerns of the communities. Issues of compensation, issues of resettlement, issues of employment generation, issues of value addition and local content and so on within the communities. If these are done by the company with a clear policy that is communicated to the community, I'm sure they will have the needed social license to operate. The communities will live at peace with them and there will be no problems. But we've done very well. We did a study, a research, I think in 2019. We went to Obuasi, Kenyasi, and then Etakwa. We did a survey and it indicated that yes, there had been some improvement, massive improvement in the relationship between the companies and their communities. And the reason is each of the companies there, Newmont in Kenyasi, Anglo Gold in Obuasi, and then Goldfields in Takwa, each of them had a clear policy of engagement with the communities. Some of them had timelines, meeting them regularly once a week, once every 2 weeks, and local employment policies and so on. So these things had helped to create a very good environment for the communities to live at peace with the companies. I'm not saying there are no problems. Yes, occasionally you hear of the clashes, but I think these are more of an isolated, incident than the norm as we used to see in the past.
Before Kwabena makes his point, I think with respect to that, it also speaks to the policies that we have, because I know we have the local content and participation requirements, which takes along the communities. Mining companies have the obligation to source certain products from Ghana. They are required to also have certain participation in terms of equity when they are engaging contract miners. So
yes,
there is that policy background
certainly,
that involvement of the communities.
One of the things the government has done, which is very commendable, is insisting on including these policies that I've mentioned in the mining agreements. So if you take Anglo Gold Ashanti, for instance, it is in their agreement to set up a community foundation, Obuasi Community Foundation. It is in the agreement. So any breach will have legal consequences. They also committed to donating, I think, $2 an ounce, $2 every ounce to fund the community trust fund, for instance. It is also in the agreement. Formerly, we left it to, it was more voluntary.
And social engagement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now it's in the agreement and the companies are bound by the agreements they sign with the government. So on that score, I think government has done extremely well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you look at it in terms of a social license to operate, and you ask yourself, do we have soldiers or the military guarding any specific mine in Ghana? The answer is no.
Yeah.
So the mines are free to operate because the mines are maybe close to a community or within a certain host community. And so it is in their collective interest to ensure that there's social cohesion. And in that regard, you find that the mines do a lot more for the communities. And clearly, as human nature is, communities would always want a lot more than what is being done. So I believe that there's a lot more that's being done. Of course, the question is that should a lot more be done? And the answer is yes. If you look today at a model mine like Newmont Ahafo North, the source of water that is needed for the mine operation is not coming from a river body or from a dam somewhere. It's water that they've generated, on site and is being circulated or recycled for the processes. So it's a lot is being done to safeguard the environment. If you look at recycling policies, waste treatment, all these are all things that are done collectively to ensure that the mine operates in a very sustainable and long-standing manner.
Right. So, off the back of our discussion on community engagement, I want to ask, how can partnership between governments, multinational mining firms, and local companies be structured in a way to ensure that we are creating value in the mining sector?
I think the first understanding we need to get is to have a shared or common interest, whether multinational, whether government, whether community. At the end of the day, we need to all have one common interest, and that common interest must be the development of the state. I know multinational mining companies don't come because they are Father Christmas. They are here basically for their profit. But they also understand that in going for their profit, if they do not operate within the development framework of the country, of course, their profit may even be, be jeopardized, sort of. So it's important to have that common understanding. Once we get that, then we can move the next step of how to deal with the individual interests. Communities want their livelihoods protected, and they want to maximize they want maximum benefit from the operations of mining in their backyard. Multinational mining companies want to make as much profit as possible, to satisfy their investors. Government wants more money, more taxes, more benefits from mining as it is getting now. So how then do we ensure that in making sure you satisfy your interests, you do not jeopardize the ability of the other partner from also getting theirs? I think that is where the fine balance that you spoke about earlier on, we need to have it. The multinational companies especially have to do a lot more to bridge that gap between them and the communities. What I can say about that relationship is that from where I sit, the presence of a multinational mining company should not be seen as a threat. It is a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity that the state can leverage and then provide the needed development for the communities. For instance, it was through the presence of the mine that Obuasi had electricity for the first time. It was through the presence of the mine that Obuasi had mobile telephony for the first time. In fact, Obuasi had those days Mobitel before Kumasi even did. And it was because of the presence of the mine. So once the mine is there, they create their own opportunities. Now there's real estate, houses springing up to meet the needs of accommodation needs of the workers. All these are opportunities for the local economy. Then the final issue has to do with how do we deal with the vulnerable within the communities who have lost their farmlands to mining, who have suffered some level of damage as a result of mining. The compensation regime, the resettlement regime And thankfully, Ghana has very clear laws on that, which the mining companies are doing their best to adhere to, even though sometimes there are conflicts here and there. Again, the courts are there, and there are cases where communities have taken the case to court and they have won. So there is that certainty when it comes to that relationship. Now, government multinational mining company relationship, that also I think is what I earlier on spoke about. There need to be certainty. There need to be more engagement. We need to have regular interactions between government and then the multinational companies. Sometimes where government feels the companies are becoming too excessive, that is where it brings its power to at least curtail these excesses and ensure the state's interest is protected. So in doing that, more engagement. I believe engagement solves a lot of the problems that we see around.
Yeah. I think sometimes we are just too hard on ourselves, we dwell so much about probably the 1% that is not going right. And we may lose sight of the fact that 99% of what we do is in the right direction. And so, like Richard said, there's a lot more being done. If you look at even the idea of coming up with this local content law, I mean, it's to benefit Ghanaians. And so that's the first step. The next step would be how we empower Ghanaians to be able to produce some of these inputs locally, because really it doesn't benefit anyone to have a contract to supply inputs to the mine, and yet you go out to bring those inputs. You wouldn't be adding value in any way.
True.
So I believe over the years, there's a lot of effort that has been made. And like I said, these efforts are yielding positive dividends, and we just have to continue to support government in what they do. Like I said, it's no coincidence that Ghana remains a tier 1 mining jurisdiction. It's clearly about the attractiveness of the country. And so efforts are being maintained to ensure that we stay as a number 1 tier jurisdiction, and that will continue to attract investments in that subsector. Today, we're looking at Ghanaian ownership of mines. 10 years ago, that didn't even exist. But now you have, if you go to the mines, nearly all the mines are being run and managed by Ghanaians. It didn't used to be the case 15 years ago. So clearly that is progress. When we talk progress, that is clearly progress. And then it used to be Ghanaians as subcontractors. Now there's some backward integration where they are taking over mines and running these mines successfully. So I would say overall there's progress being made. Communities are getting involved. Alternative livelihoods are also being presented, because the fact of the matter is the resource we have is a finite resource, and it's going to finish at some point. And what do you do when the mine closes? So today people are talking about post-closure economic activity, and that's where Ghana wants to get to, because we know at some point in time the resources will be depleted. Then what happens thereafter? So there's quite a lot being done in that regard. And I believe we need to support government in achieving those objectives. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as we draw the conversation to a close, I just have one last question. In cementing Ghana as a powerhouse in the region and globally, what are 3 urgent reforms or investments that you think that we require today?
Investment.
Yes. Or reforms that you think Ghana urgently requires to cement its position as a powerhouse?
Number 1, policy certainty. I can't emphasize that enough. It is one of the key things investors look out for, policy certainty. And I use policy certainty in a broader sense to encompass the laws, everything within the legal space. So once that certainty exists, it becomes a basis for the attraction of investment. We had the Minerals and Mining Act passed in 2006. We operated with it for how many years? Many years. The few amendments really were, for me, they were minor. They didn't really affect investors that much, apart from the one on the royalties. So that is the example I'm trying to talk about. Compare that to our neighbors somewhere within West Africa, where almost every 2 years there's a change. I mean, people rise up, they criticize, and then government quickly goes, and then there's a change. So if you are an investor in that space, it's difficult to predict what is ahead. Anytime we go through an election, you don't even know what to expect, because every election comes with a total overhaul of our legal space and all that. So Ghana has done very well in that space, but let's maintain it. Let's keep on. Yes, we will want to change, but let's change in a manner that does not shake the table too much. That is number one. Number two, I am also looking forward to government continuing with the beneficiation, efforts that is going on in a broader sense. More Ghanaians given opportunities in the mining space, whether as contractors, whether as owners of mines, because that is a big one. No foreigners have developed any country for them. It is the people themselves who develop the economy. So imagine Anglo Gold Ashanti being a Ghanaian mine, most of their shareholders being Ghanaian. Imagine the amount of money that will be retained in this economy. So there is a very good business case to be made for Ghanaian ownership of mines. And I want government to expedite that move, that policy, so that we can empower a lot more Ghanaians. I've always said that we should have done this way earlier, much earlier, but it's never too late. We can still move ahead with that effort. And then number three, we need to also look at sustainable mining practices. I say this within the context of the global concerns about climate change and green economy and all that. In the climate change space, mining is frowned upon. We look at mining as one of the pollutants, and mining companies are considered to be polluters. So they are not even given a seat at the table. But we try to argue out that developing countries cannot develop without mining. So let's strike a balance. We can still do the mining and still maintain a very safe, sane, sustainable environment. So these are things that government can promote. Already some effort is going on behind the scenes, but then we need to speed up and encourage all mining companies to keep on with their sustainable practices. And again, with regards to the last point, let's deal with the problem of illegal mining. I think that is what is staining our image as a country when it comes to sustainable mining.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Right. So I would say in terms of what government has done, just look at what Gold Board has been able to achieve over the last 12 to 18 months. This is an entity that was put together, and today we can boast of how much foreign exchange that the country has gained out of that subsector. And here we're talking about the artisanal and small scale mining subsector. So clearly, government is doing the right thing. Hitherto, this was a benefit that would have accrued to foreign entities. So in terms of reform, that is one key reform that has been put in place that is clearly, yielding dividends to us as a country. The last time I checked, 2025 figures, Gold Board brought in about $13 billion US. We went to the IMF for 3 or so. So clearly, and again, the World Bank has clearly indicated that is a subsector that can bring about transformation to the Ghanaian economy. So yes, that has been done. If you look at how we fund mining projects, in Ghana. It has always been inflows coming from external sources. Today, we're talking about how we can deepen the capital market by even encouraging companies to list on the stock exchange, the Ghana Stock Exchange, where we can then encourage ordinary Ghanaians to buy shares in some of these companies so that we grow the pool of money that is needed to grow and develop some of these mines. Sustainable practices today is a part of us. I don't think there's any entity at all that does not talk about sustainability, because that's the reason why we exist. We exist because there are systems in place that ensure that we continue to live our best life possible. So I would say overall, there's a lot more being done. In terms of reforms, yes, it's an ongoing activity. And considering that mining contributes in excess of 40% in terms of our foreign exchange earnings, every effort is being made to sanitize the sector, to improve the sector, so that the sector continues to benefit a vast majority of the people of Ghana.
Thank you all so much for your very valuable and insightful contribution to this topic. I believe that our viewers have also learned so much and seen how the mining sector is a huge opportunity for investors, domestic and foreign. I think we can say that we've made a meaningful contribution on how people can look at the Ghanaian mining sector going forward. I'd also like to say thank you to our listeners and our viewers. This podcast is live on our YouTube channel. You can like, share, comment. Please interact and make sure to follow our social media. We are on LinkedIn, we're on Spotify, we are on YouTube and other social media at Ghana Investment Promotion Center.